In this practical lesson, I'll show you how to create and prepare cash flow projections for your business using Excel. If you don't have access to a computer, don't worry. You can still follow along using a bookkeeping or accounting ledger. These are available at most stationery stores and come with pre-drawn lines and columns. Alternatively, grab a standard notebook and draw the columns you need by hand. Before we move forward, let's take a moment to review the key Excel functions and keyboard shortcuts we'll be using in this lesson. This quick overview will help you navigate Excel more efficiently and make the cash flow creation process smoother. Here are the primary keyboard shortcuts we'll be using throughout the lesson. Control and C to copy. Control and X to cut. Control and V to paste. Control and Z to undo the last action. Control and B for bold. Control and I for italic. And Control and U for underline. Now let's take a look at Excel. Open a new workbook. The headings at the top are called tabs. Just below them, you'll find the ribbon, which holds all the tools and functions we'll be using. Below the ribbon is the worksheet grid, made up of columns and rows. Columns run vertically and are labelled with letters A, B, C, while rows run horizontally and are labelled with numbers 1, 2, 3. The intersection of a column and row forms a cell where you'll enter data. Can't see the ribbon when you open Excel? Click on the Home tab. The ribbon will pop up. Now navigate to the far right bottom corner of the ribbon. You will see an icon of a drawing pin. Click on the icon to pin the ribbon to the toolbar. Click on any cell in your Excel workbook. Right-click your mouse. A menu will open and you will see options similar to our keyboard shortcuts. Copy, cut, and various paste options. The first is direct paste. This pastes everything exactly as it is, including formatting, formulas, and values. The second is paste values. This pastes only the result or value from the copied cell, without any formulas or formatting. And the third is paste formulas. This pastes just the formula from the copied cell, keeping the references and calculations intact. You will also see that the same options are available in the top left of the Excel ribbon. We'll explore the rest of the Excel functions you'll need to create your cash flow projection as we go. Let's get started. First, save your Excel file by clicking the File tab in the top left corner. This opens the menu. Select Save As. Choose a location on your computer and enter a name for your file. Finally, click Save to confirm. Practical Lesson 1. How to create and prepare cash flow projections. Now that you've saved your spreadsheet, let's look at the template we'll recreate. If you've purchased the full course, this template is available as a downloadable resource. This workbook is comprised of 4 sheets. The first sheet is the dashboard, which displays graphs that represent the financial data. The first graph provides a visual representation of the cash flow summary, showing the closing bank balance, credit limit, and available balance for each month. The second graph illustrates the cash inflows versus cash outflows using a bar chart. The second tab is the cash flow summary. This sheet provides detailed information, including the opening bank balance, cash inflows, cash outflows, the closing bank balance, the credit limit, if applicable, and the available balance. It serves as a comprehensive summary of all cash-related information. The third tab is dedicated to cash-in records. This is where you'll record all incoming funds, including receipts from customers, other income such as interest, and any proceeds from loans the business has extended. The table includes totals for each line item and for each month. These monthly totals are then reflected in the cash flow summary. The fourth and final tab is for cash out records. This is where you'll record all outgoing payments, including payments to suppliers and other cash expenses such as bank charges or interest. You'll also document any capital repayments on loans, if applicable. Additionally, all tax and dividend payments are recorded in this section. As with the cash-in table, totals are calculated for each line item as well as for the monthly values. These monthly totals are then reflected in the cash flow summary. Now that you have a clear understanding of what this workbook entails, let's move on to creating it together. Go to your saved workbook and navigate to the bottom of the sheet. Rename the tab to Cash Out. Right-click your mouse on the tab and select Rename from the menu. Next, we'll format our sheet. Next, we'll add our month headings. Just like with the budget, remember to align these with your financial year. In our example, the business has a February year end, which aligns with the SARS tax year. Therefore, our first month will be March 2024. Now, let's capture all the month headings in one simple step. Click on the cell containing March 2024, then hover over the bottom right corner of the cell until a small black cross appears. Left-click, hold and drag across the columns until you reach February 2025. The next column will be the total column. Next, we'll add the descriptions for our financial data. We'll begin by adding labels for suppliers. You can go ahead and input the names of your actual suppliers. For this example, I'll use placeholders like Supplier 1, Supplier 2, and so on. After that, add a section for other expenses, such as bank charges and payroll costs. Include a section for loan repayments, specifically for the capital amounts repaid on a loan from a bank or financial institution. Don't forget to include a section for tax and dividend payments. Add the label for the total cash outline. Now, I'm going to add some additional formatting to this sheet to prepare it for printing. Once I've determined the area I want to print, I select all the cells in that range. Next, I navigate to the Page Layout tab on the top toolbar, then choose Print Area and finally select Set Print Area. To check that the print layout is set up correctly, let's take a look. Navigate to the File tab on the top toolbar, which will open a new menu. Locate the Print option. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a preview of your sheet. To ensure it prints correctly, make sure the orientation is set to Landscape and the scaling option is set to Fit Sheet on one page. Now it's time to add headings, colors, and formatting to personalize your sheet. Choose a style that enhances readability and aligns with your preferences or branding. Use bold fonts for headings. Apply background colors to highlight sections and ensure the layout is clean and visually appealing. Now it's time to add our formulas. First, we'll calculate the totals for each line. I'll use the AutoSum function button, but since there is no data yet, an error message will appear. Simply select OK. Next, you'll manually select the range for the formula by highlighting the relevant cells, in this case, from C6 to N6. Once you've selected the cells, press Enter to complete the formula. You'll notice that our numbers are not yet formatted. To improve readability, I'm going to format the cells containing numbers. First, I'll select all the relevant cells. Then, I'll navigate to the number formatting section in the top toolbar, click on the drop-down arrow and select Currency. In the budget worksheet, we removed the decimals, but for the cash flow, I'll leave them in. To copy the formula down the rest of the sheet, start by clicking on the cell with the formula and pressing Ctrl and C. Next, select the cell in the following row, right-click, and choose the Paste Formulas icon. To quickly repeat this action down the rest of the totals column, simply press F4. Now we'll add the monthly totals using the same process. Start by using the Auto Sum function button and manually selecting the cells relevant to this formula. In this case, from C5 to C45. Once the formula is set, copy it across the columns by following the same steps we just used. You might notice a small green or red triangle in the top left corner of our formula cells. This indicates an error message stating that the formula omits adjacent cells, which is correct in this case. To clear the error, highlight the formula cells, click on the exclamation mark, and select Ignore Error from the menu. I'm going to enter some financial data, for now, as an example. This is just temporary, and I'll come back later to update it with our actual budget data. Running checksums is a critical step to ensure the accuracy and reliability of your financial data. A checksum acts as a verification tool, confirming that your totals align across different sections of your worksheet. This allows you to quickly identify any discrepancies or errors, such as missing or duplicated entries. Now let's go ahead and add a checksum to verify that the totals for our rows and the monthly totals are accurate and properly tally up. Use an open cell on the monthly totals row in a column after the row totals. Enter the following formula, equals the word sum, open bracket 06 to 045, close bracket, another equals the word sum, open bracket C47 to N47, close bracket. Then press enter. If the result is the word true, it means everything is in order. If the result is the word false, there's an error in one of the formulas that needs to be checked. To check each of your formulas, click into the cell and ensure that the blue highlight border surrounds all the applicable cells. This visual check confirms that the formula is referencing the correct range of data. We have now completed the cash out sheet, so let's move on to creating the cash in sheet. To do this, right-click on the Cash Out tab and select Move or Copy from the menu. Then, choose the option to create a copy. This will create a duplicate of the Cash Out sheet, which will be named Cash Out 2. Rename this tab to Cash In by right-clicking on it and selecting Rename from the menu. If your sheet has a heading, rename it to Cash In. Next, change the word Supplier to Customer, and if applicable, you can add the names of your actual customers. Rename the section titled Other Expenses to Other Income. The loan section can remain, as this will be used to record funds received from a loan the business has extended. The tax section should also remain, as it will be used for tax refunds when applicable. If the business does not expect to receive dividend income, you can remove the dividend section. Remember to rename your total line from Total Cash Out to Total Cash In to ensure consistency with the cash in sheet. I'm going to enter some financial data, for now, as an example. This is just temporary, and I'll come back later to update it with our actual budget data. Let's move on to creating our cash summary sheet. Navigate to the tabs at the bottom of your worksheet and click on the plus symbol. This will add a new sheet to your workbook. Next, ensure the sheet is positioned at the front of the other two tabs. To do this, simply left-click on the tab, hold, and drag it into place. Finally, rename the tab to Cash Summary. We will now add some formatting and copy the headings from the cash in sheet. Once pasted, remember to rename the heading from Cash In to Cash Summary to reflect the purpose of this sheet accurately. Next, we will add labels in column B, placing them in the rows directly below the headings. These labels will include opening bank balance, cash in, cash out, closing bank balance, credit limit if applicable, and finally, available amount. Now it's time to add colors and formatting to personalize your sheet. Choose a style that enhances readability and aligns with your preferences or branding. Now, we will add the formulas to the total columns and format the numbers as currency, following the same process we used for the previous two sheets. Remember to apply bold formatting to the closing bank balance and available amount rows to highlight these key figures. Now, let's bring in the values for cash in, using a formula. Start by typing the equal sign, then navigate to the cash in sheet and select the total for March 2024. Press Enter to confirm the formula. Next, copy this formula across the remaining columns. Click on the cell, hover your mouse over the bottom right corner until you see a small black cross. Then left-click, hold, and drag the formula across to fill the rest of the columns. Now, repeat this process for the cash out values. After typing the equal sign, navigate to the cash out sheet and select the total for March 2024. The formula for the closing bank balance is as follows. Type equals, then select the opening bank balance plus cash in minus cash out. This will calculate the remaining balance at the end of each period, ensuring accurate tracking of cash flow. Once entered, copy this formula across the rest of the columns. If your business has an overdraft or credit facility, you can enter the amount in this section. This will help ensure that your available balance reflects any additional funds accessible through your credit facility. Remember to check the formula for this line. It will not be a sum or total of the row. The amount will always be equal to the credit facility value, ensuring it remains consistent across all periods. If or when it changes, you can update from the relevant period. The formula for the available amount is as follows. Type equals, then select the closing bank balance plus the credit limit value. This will ensure that the available funds reflect both the actual cash balance and any accessible credit. Copy the formula across the rest of the columns. Now let's look at the opening bank balance. In this example, March 2024 is the first month of trading, so the opening balance is nil. For the following months, the opening bank balance will always be equal to the closing bank balance of the previous month. This means the April opening balance will be equal to the March closing balance. The May opening balance will be equal to the April closing balance, and so on. Let's check the print settings for this sheet. Start by selecting all the cells in the range you want to print. Then navigate to the page layout in the top ribbon. Select Print Area and then choose Set Print Area. Next, go to the File tab in the top toolbar and select Print. In the Print preview, check that the orientation is set to landscape and that the scaling option is set to fit sheet on one page. This ensures that all the necessary data is visible and properly formatted for printing. You can follow the same steps to set up the print settings for the cash in sheet as well. I am going to remove the sample data and bring up the business budget we created in the previous lesson. Since the budget serves as the foundation of the cash flow, we will use those figures in our cash flow projections. When preparing the cash flow, you may not always know which customers will place orders or the exact value of their purchases. For now, we will simply enter the total budgeted value in an open row within this section. You can adjust these values to reflect actual figures at the end of each month. There are no budgeted figures for other income, so we will leave this section blank for now. Be sure to update the section with actual values at the end of the month if applicable. The same applies to the loans and tax sections, so I will remove any figures from these sections. Once again, remember to update these sections with actual values at the end of the month if applicable. Let's follow the same process for the cash out sheet. I will start by removing the example data to ensure that we are working with the budgeted figures. Let's pull up the budget so we can take a look at the expenses section for the cash out sheet. In our budget, the expenses are listed using the expense account descriptions. For our cash flow, we will need to adapt these based on supplier payments and cash expenses for other expenses, which will have the same descriptions as the expense accounts. If your business does not have suppliers as such, simply keep the expense account names as they are. However, if your business does make use of suppliers, replace the supplier placeholder with the actual name of your supplier. For ease of reference, and for this example, I am going to replace the supplier placeholder with the expense account description. This way, you can see exactly where these figures come from in the budget. Once you have captured the expected supplier payments, the next step is to move on to the other expenses section. This section includes various operational costs that are not directly tied to supplier payments, but are still essential for running the business. Be sure to review your budget carefully and enter the relevant figures to ensure your cash flow projection is as accurate as possible. With the other expenses captured, let's take a look at the loan section. This section is used to record the expected capital repayment on a loan, meaning the amount excluding interest. If your business has a loan from a bank or another financial institution, be sure to include the expected capital repayment amount here. This amount will not appear in your budget, but must be accounted for in your cash flow projection. Additionally, be sure to include all expected minimum repayments on credit and overdraft facilities to ensure your cash flow remains accurate and up to date. It's always a good idea to go back over your budget to ensure that nothing has been overlooked. Reviewing your budget carefully helps you catch any missing expenses or adjustments that need to be made, ensuring that your cash flow projection is as accurate and reliable as possible. If you take a look at the example budget, you will notice that provision has been made for the Unemployment Insurance Fund payments, as well as the Workmen's Compensation Fund. As a business owner, it is essential to ensure compliance with tax and labour laws. If you are unsure about any obligations, it is always best to consult a professional. We will account for the expected UIF payments under the tax section, as these payments are made to SARS via the monthly EMP 201 submission. On the other hand, the expected Workmen's Compensation Fund payments will be recorded under expenses, as this is not classified as a tax, but rather as insurance for employees. The next section in our budget relates to home office expenses. If you run your business from a dedicated home office, a percentage of certain costs may be claimed as an expense. However, it is important to ensure that you fully understand and comply with the SARS requirements for home office deductions before claiming these expenses. If you are unsure about the eligibility criteria or how to calculate the allowable portion, it is best to consult with a tax practitioner to avoid any compliance issues. Take a side-by-side view of your budget and cash flow projections to ensure that all expenses and income have been accounted for. This comparison helps identify any missing items and ensures that your cash flow aligns with your budgeted figures, providing a clearer picture of your financial position. Last but definitely not least, it is important to account for potential income tax payments. The standard company tax rate at the time of this recording is 27% of profit. However, if your business qualifies as a small business corporation, tax is calculated on a sliding scale. If you are unsure which tax rate applies to your business, it is best to make provision for at least 27% of the business's profit until you can consult with a tax practitioner who can confirm whether your business qualifies for the small business corporation tax rates. If your budget reflects a loss with a negative tax amount, rather use a nil value in your cash flow projection instead of a negative value. We have now completed the cash in and cash out worksheets. Next, let's take a look at our summary page and ensure that all data is pulling through correctly. In this table, the total column is not the same as the total columns in the cash in and cash out worksheets. Here, the formulas are structured as follows. The opening balance will be equal to that of the first month, which in this case is March 2024 and was nil. The cash in and cash out formulas are sums of the amounts for each month, so these can remain unchanged. The closing balance will follow the same formula as the other months, or alternatively, it will be equal to the closing value in the last month, which in this case is February 2025. The credit limit remains static, meaning it retains the same value throughout. The available amount will always be calculated as the closing balance plus the credit limit. Just as we did on the cash in and cash out worksheets, let's go ahead and add our checksums. Let's start by checking cash in. Type equals, select the value of the cash in total on the summary page, then navigate to the final total cell in the cash in worksheet. Press enter to confirm the formula. Now repeat the same process for the cash out checksum. These checksums will help verify that our totals are pulling through correctly. Now that all the financial data is in, I want to add a visual representation. So I am going to create a bar graph. To do this, I will first select the dataset, which includes everything from the month headings down in our cash summary table. Next, I will navigate to the Insert tab on the top toolbar and look for the bar graph icon. Once selected, I will choose a style and format that suits my preference. For this particular chart, I only want to display the graphical representation of the cash in and cash out values. To adjust my dataset, I will click on the corner of the highlighted area and move it to the desired position. Once I have that in place, I will check my graph. Next, I will double-click the chart title and rename the graph to Cash In versus Cash Out. I notice that the bars appear very small, which is because the totals are included in the dataset. To fix this, I will follow the same process I just did and adjust the dataset to exclude the totals. That looks much better. Follow the same process to insert a second bar chart. This time, we only want to display the closing balance, the credit limit, and the available amount. The totals can be excluded to ensure a clearer visual representation. Now, we want to change the chart type. To do this, right-click on the chart and select Change Chart Type from the menu options. A new window will appear with different chart options. From here, select the Combo Chart option. This will allow us to display multiple data series in a way that makes the information clearer and easier to interpret. Next, choose the chart type for each data series. The closing balance will remain as a clustered column. Then change the credit limit to a line chart. Finally, change the available amount to align with markers. The chart now provides a clear graphical representation of these items. Feel free to adjust the design, colors, and layout as needed to suit your preferences or enhance readability. Customizing the chart can help highlight key insights and make the data even easier to interpret. Remember to change the chart title to better reflect the information being represented. I am going to rename it to Cash Flow Summary to ensure clarity and accuracy in the visual presentation. You can leave these charts here on the summary sheet, or if you prefer, you can create a new sheet and rename it to Dashboard. Then move the charts there. This allows you to keep all visual representations in one place for a cleaner and more organized workbook. Choose the option that best suits your workflow and presentation style. Just as we did with all the other worksheets, format your dashboard to ensure it is ready for printing. Select the range of cells you want to include. Then navigate to the Page Layout tab on the top toolbar. Click on Print Area and select Set Print Area. Next, go to the File tab and select Print. In the Print Preview, check that the orientation is set to Landscape and that the scaling option is set to Fit Sheet on one page. This will ensure that all charts and data are clearly visible when printed. Let's go ahead and check the print layout for the entire workbook. To do this, hold down the Control key and select each of the tabs to group them together. Then navigate to the File tab and select the Print option. In the Print Preview section, scroll through each page to check the layout and ensure that all data and charts are properly aligned. If any adjustments are needed, go back to the individual sheets, update the print settings, and repeat the process until everything is correctly formatted. I am going to add a heading to my dashboard by copying and pasting the heading from the Cash Summary sheet. This will ensure consistency across the workbook and make it clear that the dashboard reflects key financial data from the Cash Summary. You have now completed the cash flow projection. Your workbook is set up with all the necessary calculations, summaries, and visual representations to track and manage your business's cash flow effectively. Congratulations! You have successfully created your cash flow projection. Well done!